You know, when people start to dare to question science, whether it's cosmology or evolution or aliens, most people are perfectly content to sit back and laugh and let the champions of science defend what they think they all know to be true. But you really have to wonder if the public fully appreciates the true extent of all that these champions of science are saying and believing in. And what's more, how it actually all ties back into a very old occult agenda.
As our video games become more and more lifelike, it's becoming clear that at some point, perhaps soon, our simulations will be indistinguishable from reality. If that's true, how do we know it didn't already happen? Could we be in a simulation now?
So who made the simulation?
Some snot-nosed kid in the parents' basement of an alien civilization who's bored and they're more advanced than we are, and they have way more computing power than we are.
Right, so it's like a little handheld Nintendo you can
Exactly, and so they program in enough detail to completely simulate every molecule in this universe, and we are here for their entertainment.
Enter the multiverse theory. Imagine an endless number of universes and an endless number of us. Universes where we can be playing Battlefield, The Sims, Dragon Age, and FIFA endlessly. Nice.
And if you simulate something as precise as the original thing, I don't think actually there is a difference. This universe could have been created by some super intelligence in another universe. So maybe our whole universe is a junior high school science experiment of some super intelligent junior high school student in another universe. And another possibility is that our universe actually runs on a computer, because people have examined physical laws as a set of computational processes. And it's really quite plausible to say our universe is a computer.
Everything is code. Everything is code in the sense that hackers mean when they say they write code. A vocabulary with very defined rules and quick to learn, and then they're like tinker toys. Once you know the rules of the connectivity, then you can sit down like a child and begin to stick these things together and say, well, what would this be like, and what would this be like, and does God allow this, or does this break the rules, and so forth. The DNA is like that. Human language is like that. Human body language is like that. Machines communicate like this. In fact, this is a bridge which connects us. This is the great overarching bridge which will connect us to the machines, that they, like us, are commanded by language. And so this realization that everything is code, and code moving on many levels, is, I think, a further... It's more primary than the perception, for example, that things are made of space, time, matter, and energy. That's one level below code. The code codes for space, time, matter, and energy. It's much more like we're in a simulacrum, some kind of machine environment. And in fact, I like that idea, because I've always sensed, and psychedelics have always intensified this intuition in me, that the universe is a puzzle. Life is a problem to be solved. It's a conundrum. It's not what it appears to be. There are doors. There are locks and keys. There are levels. And if you get it right, somehow it will give way to something extremely unexpected.
So for me, the more I look into this whole concept of simulation theory and all the different related theories which seem to stem from quantum physics and astrophysics and this whole mishmash of theoretical scientism, I'm really coming to see how it seems almost undeniable at this point that simulation theory is really the concept that seems like it's going to tie together the entire transhumanism narrative with the aliens narrative, and artificial intelligence and all the rest. You can see how once you start looking at these things through the lens of simulation theory and the multiverse and all this other nonsense, you see how they could really all fit together, and how it really all does fit together into one narrative. On the one hand, you can see how when people start really taking these kinds of ideas seriously and questioning if they might actually be part of a simulation themselves, meaning that we are just a simulation, our consciousness is just a part of a program, as all these people say, it's just information that eventually forms the matter and energy that we think is the physical universe. It pushes back to these age-old philosophical and mystical questions about what is consciousness. And once you get to that point, you can see how people would start regarding all the programs that we're writing, the software that we're creating in the quest to create artificial intelligence, how the lines become completely blurred as to what consciousness is, what a person is. And it reduces it all to this mechanical, yet not mechanical level. Where everything is just information, right? So I'm information, the house is information, the universe is information, and artificial intelligence is just a collection of information. Everything is just information interacting with other information. Aliens are information. So here, this is where it gets really interesting, because once you really start to think about this concept of aliens being presented as just intelligences, just interdimensional beings that don't necessarily have to come in a physical, little alien gray body or a physical spaceship, but something that maybe exists in a higher dimension altogether, another dimension, which of course is more or less synonymous with the spiritual explanation of things. But you can really see how simulation theory kind of describes the same idea, but in a way that people can embrace it without it having to think of it in a spiritual sense altogether. So what's really crazy is that we already see this in science fiction all over the place, in terms of so many different movies and shows explaining to people the whole idea of one intelligence in a higher dimension trying to communicate with, an intelligence from one dimension trying to communicate with people in another dimension, and trying to find the dimensional crossover. I mean, Interstellar is just an amazing example of this, where he goes into the wormhole and is in this crazy dimension where he can travel to different points of space and time, and then try and interact with his daughter using the dust and the light rays and the clock. I mean, and essentially what they're showing there is like an example of a poltergeist, right? But from the perspective of the ghost, quote unquote, where he is the ghost in the room where he was standing, but it's just him in a higher dimension. And another one I've been thinking about is with the show Stranger Things, where of course the little boy, he gets trapped inside the Upside Down, which is this sort of alternate nightmarish dimension that is sort of parallel to ours, but he can't get out, but he's trying to communicate with his mom. And again, it's this poltergeist kind of situation, but it's depicting interdimensional communication. But I think if we stop and look at these examples, these depictions that they're constantly showing in different ways, trying to explain the concept, and then you listen to what they're talking about in quantum physics, and all these, quote-unquote real scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and Michio Kaku and Ray Kurzweil and Elon Musk and on. They're talking about this whole idea that was parroted by mystics and advocates of hallucinogenics such as Terence McKenna, of everything basically being like a big computer program. Everything is code. Everything is just a construct of information. Blah, blah, blah. The Matrix idea. And more people are latching onto this and thinking it has merit. And, they're not just people who have taken too many drugs, but it's on both sides of the fence. The people that have had mystical experiences and the people that have explored it from the angle of the esoteric and in the New Age are coming to the same conclusions as the people coming through mainstream, Silicon Valley scientism. And that's pretty amazing. So once you have this idea that everything is just a construct and we can't even really tell if we're in a super complex simulation or not, because how would you ever know? But then what if things do start to bleed through? What if you do have supernatural phenomena? What if you do have glitches in the matrix, whether it's the Mandela effect, whether it's UFO experiences, mystical experiences, things in the sky, a strange phenomenon? Or it's interesting to even kind of take all these theories that they're kicking around and they just are constantly talking about. At this point, I can easily see how at some point we could hear some announcement from CERN, saying that they've discovered some kind of code or discovered some kind of message embedded in the quantum, embedded in the fabric of the universe, or that's coming through the quantum computers. I mean, the setup for it all is almost just too obvious, to where they're saying that, like, well, theoretically, if we're getting a communication from some higher dimension, maybe it's the beings that actually created our simulation. Maybe they're from a parallel universe. Maybe we're both parts of simulations and they're trying to help us break out of ours like they broke out of theirs. I mean, there's so many little twists they could put on it, but the same basic idea is that it creates this huge avenue to explain things trying to break through from the spiritual realm, things trying to communicate with humanity, things trying, entities, the aliens, in a way that we've totally been primed for, not just in the scientific geekiness side, but in the quote-unquote real science. I mean, it's all the pieces are there. It really is pretty amazing. And again, it keeps bringing you back to the connections with the New Age and the occult. Just yesterday, I was listening to this excerpt from an interview with Philip K. Dick, the renowned science fiction author who died in 1983. He went on record talking about basically the whole Matrix idea of the universe being a giant simulation, I mean, he was talking about simulation theory in the 70s, way before any of these guys who are talking about it now. And in this interview clip with Philip K. Dick, he's talking about how in 1974 he was completely possessed by an entity that he didn't know whether it was God or an alien or some dead friend or what, but it was thousands of years old and can speak a bunch of ancient languages and dictate things and control his whole body and impart all sorts of knowledge and ideas to him. And I mean, it's undeniable that this whole concept comes from the whole Matrix idea, the computer simulation universe, the code universe. This is a doctrine of demons, and I really do believe it's going to be pretty essential to however they choose to try and reveal themselves to humanity and reveal themselves as some kind of savior. The externalization of the hierarchy, quote unquote, could very well be like the ancient aliens concept returning, and yet they're returning from a higher dimension, from we're just a simulation inside of their simulation or whatever,
was looking for someone.
So who knows?
So in 74, there came upon me at the trough of my life, at the point where I saw nothing but inexplicable suffering, there came to me the beatific vision that the irrational is the primordial stratum of the universe. It comes first in time, and it is primary in ontology, in levels of essence. And it evolves from irrationality, chaos, and blindness into rationality. That is, the irrational gives birth to the rational, and that the history of the universe